and welcome back for episode number 156 of the weekly playback. So before we begin, I do still have a cough. It's not like I have a sore throat. I think it's just some like esophageal like irritation or something from like having vomited a few times in the last week. And but I do have a doctor appointment coming up, like a post-surgery appointment where I'm just going to discuss a bunch of stuff with my doctor, so hopefully everything will get taken care of. Also, I don't know if you guys will even see at any point during the video, but just in case, I do have a bruise on my arm, and I've actually had a bruise there for quite some time because I've been getting weekly iron infusions, IV iron infusions, and when I do that, when they stick in the IV in my arm instead of in my hand, it always bruises. So if you do happen to see that, that's what that is. And finally, I'm going to get a haircut this week, which I'm really excited about because my bangs are just absolutely driving me insane and my hair is just too long and I'm just really, really sick of it. So we'll see what happens with that. So I think that's it. So let's get started. Let's talk about A Place for All My Books. This is a 2025 game for 1 to 4 players designed by Alex Cutler and Michael Mihalsik, and the art is done by Naomi Lord, and it's published by Smirk and Dagger Games. And this is a copy which I backed on Kickstarter, so it is not a review copy. And I backed the deluxe edition. So this is a really fun worker placement game in which you are going to be, there's also like tile placement involved, I guess you could say. There's a bit of an abstract element in here as well with pattern building, but it's a worker placement game in which you are collecting books, but you before you can get more books, you know, by going into town, you need to rest and recharge your social battery. It's a very cozy, crunchy game, and I really, really enjoyed my play of it. So I will just show you all the components before we discuss how to play. So this is the town board, and the town board, you know, will differ a little bit depending on player count. So if you're playing with 4 players, you're going to have 2 spaces at the bookshop. So that is what the town board looks like. And here is the round tracker. So you're going to have a sun on the starting space, and by the time the sun reaches the last space, that will trigger the game end, and we'll talk about how that happens. So this is what a player board looks like, and you have your own worker spaces in your own apartment that you can go to. So we'll talk about what all of those spaces are in a little bit, and you can see the different rooms you have in your house. So up here you have the bedroom, here it looks like a den, here it looks like a bath, and then down here is the kitchen. So you have these different rooms, and you can see that they're kind of outlined, and that can become relevant when you are trying to fulfill certain small projects, complete little projects. So for setup, each person is going to be taking out a certain number of books from the bag in these colors. So the blue player, for example, will have 4 blue books, and then 3 red books, 3 yellow books, and 2 green books. And each player is going to have the most books of their own color, as you can see. Once you get those books from the book bag, then you are going to shuffle them up, and you are going to place them in a stack randomly. So you'll place 4 books here randomly from the books that you acquired. You'll place 3 books here randomly from the books you acquired. Sorry, this one's 4, that one's 3, it looks like. So 4 here, 3 here, 3 here, and then 2 here. And each person is going to be doing that on their own board. And just from taking a look at the boards, it looks like the books will be placed in different locations on each board as well. So that's how that works. But again, each person is going to have the most books in their own color. So you have a book bag that's filled with all the different colored books. So the different colored books are blue, green, red, and yellow. And then off to the side, there are going to be 2 wild colored books, which you can obtain by getting other neat stuff that might allow you to get that. Same with the Lucky Kitties. So I'll explain how the Lucky Kitties work and these wild books if we happen to come across that. Which, well, I guess I can just find it in the deck and show you. So we will come across it. And here is the round tracker, the sun. And then we also have the first player marker, which is a backpack. So for setup, on top of the town board, you are going to randomly draw 3 books and place them up here, 2 books and place them up here, and 1 book and place them up there. And then above each of those, you're also going to place a little project face up. So little projects are projects that you will be completing in your own apartment. And this is an example of a little project. So this one says, have at least 1 book in each space of a 3x3 square of your home. So that's an example of a little project, and there's a whole stack of these. So again, above the bookstore, you're going to have some books randomly placed and a little project face up above each one for setup. So that's part of setup. And then part of setup as well, you are going to have face up 2 of these other neat stuff cards, and then you'll have a draw deck of a whole bunch of these as well. And other neat stuff cards are things that you can collect in one of the shops in town, but you can also gain them as rewards for completing like other little projects. So these, you know, will give you a special one-time ability or a special end game scoring thing and so on. I think maybe end game scoring, or maybe, yeah, end game scoring as well. Yes. Associated with your player color, each person will also have a card that goes with their player color. And essentially what this is it's just going to give you more social battery when you do the admire action if the color associated with your player board is the most, if you have books associated with your player board color, and they're the most books in your apartment. Gosh, if I cannot say that sentence. So for example, if I'm the blue player and I'm doing the admire action, at the time I'm doing the admire action, if I have more blue books than any other color, then I will gain an extra 3 in social battery. So each person's player card says the same thing, respective to their own color. So let me just show you the player pieces. So here are some player pieces. So this is the meeple you'll be moving around in order to take your worker actions. The 3 small discs are used for major accomplishments, which I'll talk about in a second. And then you have your social battery tracker, which is going to keep track of your social battery on your own player board. So in here, you keep track of social battery. So in a 4-player game, if you are the starting player, you start with 3 social battery, then the next player has 4, then the next player has 5, I believe, and then the last player has 6. So that's how much social battery you start with. And the maximum is 20 social battery. So any battery gained above 20 would just be wasted basically, which happened quite a bit to me actually. And then finally, there's going to be some major accomplishment cards. So you're going to shuffle these and then lay out 3 of them. And these are goals that everyone can try to complete. So for example, this one says have 4+ tall stacks, 1 in each room of your apartment. So like the den, the bedroom, the bath, and the kitchen, that have the same exact books in any order. And a tall stack is 3 or more books. So you're going to have 3 of these major accomplishments laid out. And the first person to complete them would put one of their accomplishment discs on the first ribbon, and they would gain the reward there, and then every other player who completes it would gain the lesser reward. So these are common goals that everyone can try to achieve. So now we can talk about how to play. But before we talk about how to play, I just want to talk about game end trigger. So anytime someone decides to come into town, that's going to move the sun forward 1 space. So coming into town is going to bring you closer and closer to game end. So in a 4-player game, there's going to be 8 movements before the game end is triggered, which essentially equals about 2 times per person, but it won't necessarily work out that way. It could be that someone comes into town 3 times, basically taking away the option of someone else to come into town a second time. So that's something that you're just going to kind of be careful about or mindful of as you play the game. So again, anytime someone takes an action to come into town, decides to come into town for their action, that's going to push you closer to game end. Once the sun reaches the last space, you will finish the round so that everyone's had an equal number of turns, and then you'll all take 1 more turn. So on your turn, you're essentially just going to move your worker to a spot and then take the action. So let's go over the worker spots on the player board. So you can rest. Oh, before we begin, talking about the actions. For little projects, you will be dealt 5 little project cards in the beginning during setup, and you'll keep 3 of them and discard 2 of them. And again, little projects are projects that you're going to want to complete, and these will help you to recharge your social battery and gain points. So the rest action, if you decide to rest, that will allow you to gain 2 more little project cards from the draw deck, and then you have to discard down to 5 if you have more than 5, and you will gain 2 social battery. the sort action. So sort means, so again, we talked about in the setup how you're going to have these stacks of books, and a stack can consist of a single book as well. So in the sort action, you will gain 1 social battery, and you will pick up a stack of books, so an entire stack from one section, one square, and you will distribute them to the top of any other stacks or empty spaces with a maximum of 2 books per stack. So suppose, and a stack can be a maximum of 6 high. So suppose I picked up a stack of 6 books, I can distribute 2 to another stack if I want, 2 to an empty space, and then 2 to another stack, because you can't distribute more than 3 to one stack when you do that action. Sorry, more than 2 to one stack when you do that action. So a maximum of 2. So that is the sort action. I feel like my cats are doing something. I feel like they're making a lot of noise downstairs. So it turns out that was not cats, that's actually my mom and sister who are making a lot of noise, so hopefully it won't come up here, the noise. Okay, so they're visiting for a week. So we talked about the sort action, so now the gather action, that will also gain you a social battery, but here you're going to take the top book from up to 6 stacks, so up to 6 stacks, so you can have a total of 6 books, and then you're going to place these as one stack on any one space. So since it's up to 6, if you do take from 6 stacks in total, then it's going to need to go on an empty space, because again, the maximum number of books you can have on any one space is 6. I'll talk about the admire action last. No, actually I'll talk about the leave the house action last. Read a book. So when you read a book, you gain 2 social battery, and you move 1 book from anywhere in your home to the top of your nightstand, which is over here. And so again, that's the read a book action, and this will become relevant when you go into town. The books on your nightstand could become relevant when you go into town and take a certain action over there, which we'll talk about. The admire action. So this is when you accomplish 1 or more little projects and gain the rewards. So you want to have at least 2 of these little projects ready to complete and admire by the time you take the admire action, because otherwise you're just kind of wasting a turn. Otherwise it's just going to take you more and more time to gain the rewards and get a greater amount of social battery. So here's a project, for example. So this one says, have a full column where the top book of each stack is the same color. You would gain 3 social battery and the points you will gain at the end of the game. This one says, have exactly 1 tall stack in each room. And again, a tall stack is 3 or more books. And with this one, you would gain 1 of those other neat stuff cards instead of social battery. So again, you want to have at least 2 of these ready to claim on a turn when you do the admire action, because otherwise you're just, you know, doing yourself a disservice. So yeah, you definitely want to have at least 2 of these. On one of my turns, I completed 3 at one time, which was really nice. So that is the admire action. Then finally, we're going to talk about the last action available, which is leave the house. So you will pay 5 social battery and advance the sun tracker, and then you will immediately take an action in the town, on the town board. So the rulebook recommends, and this is very obvious when you're playing, that you want to have a lot of social battery before you leave the house, because again, you're advancing the game. You know, you're getting closer to game end every time someone leaves the house and goes to town, because the sun tracker is moving 1 space. And before you leave town, you want to try to do a number of things before you have to leave town and come back to your apartment, because the number of times you're going to come to town is limited in a game. So you want to have at least, I would say, 15, probably 18 social battery. So because you're spending 5 right off the bat to get into town. So once you get to town, there's a number of actions you can take. The main one is the bookstore. So when you come to the bookstore, you will pay 1 of these in social battery, depending on which group you are collecting from. So if in a 4-player game you come to the bookstore, you can come in this space, which means you would be able to collect from here, or you can come to this space, which means you would be either to be able to take either this group or this group. So the spaces in a 4-player game do matter. They don't matter in a 1, 2, 3-player game, because there's only 1 space in a 1, 2, 3-player game. So you're going to take all of the books that are there in the space you choose, plus the little project card. Then from the bag, you will draw 3 books and then place 1 in each section. So there's always going to be large grouping, a medium grouping, and a small grouping. So it will depend on which group you choose that, you know, how much you pay in your social battery. The largest group, you will always pay 6 in social battery, the medium 3, and the smallest 1. So you're always going to look at which group has the most books and then determine how much you have to pay in your social battery. And you're also going to replenish the little project cards, of course, above the group that you took. So once you've taken a grouping of books and a little project card, then after it gets replenished, there's going to be 1 book in that section now, plus 1 little project card. Whereas another section, you know, might start accumulating more and more books if no one wants to take that one. So that is how the bookstore works. Now, in a 4-player game, this counts as 1 worker location. So if you are here on your next turn, you cannot move to the other empty bookstore spot because you always have to go to a different location on a subsequent turn. And that also goes for in your apartment. You cannot do the same action twice. So that is how the bookstore works. Village shops is where you can collect those little, these other neat stuff cards, which is great. So if you go there, you can take 1 for 4 social battery. You can take both of the face-up cards for 9 social battery, which is a lot, or you can blind draw from the deck for 3 social battery. So now is a good time to talk about these other neat stuff cards. So some of them will give you end of game points. So for example, set collection points. So let me just show you one of those. So for example, there are 4 board game book cards in the stack. So if you have all 4 by the end of the game, you will gain 20 points. If you have just 1, it's just 2 points. So the other board games that you will find in the stack are the 2 boop games and then some other game that I can't remember. There are some collectible enamel pins that also work in that same way. So yeah, these ones. So those are also a set collection where you will want to try to get all 4 in order to get the maximum number of points. These lucky kitties, so there's 4 lucky kitties and they come in the 4 different book colors. So here is the red lucky kitty. So the way that this works is when you gain this card, you are going to place that lucky kitty token next to one of the rooms in your house. And then at the end of the game, all the books that are of the same color as the lucky kitty will count as 1 point. So I think that that's a great card to have. And I had it for my book color. So I managed to get the lucky kitty for the blue books and I was the blue player. So that worked out perfectly. I still lost the game and came in last place, but I was pretty happy about that. So yeah, so those are the lucky kitty cards. Some of them will give you a special kind of action, like on your turn. So for example, the laptop. On your turn, flip this card to take other neat stuff card from the discard pile at no cost. So some of these cards are one-time actions that you can do, which are really great. Here's one that you would complete after you acquire it. Gain 2 books of any one color from the bag. So these are the other neat stuff cards. So again, you can acquire those by going to the village shops and there will be 2 face-up and then a draw deck. So another action you can do in town is to go to the library. So you will draw 4 books from the bag. You will keep 1. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong side. So for a 4-player game, you will draw 5 books from the bag. You will keep 2 and then deal 1 to each of the shelves in the bookstore. So thematically, not sure how that works. Like who goes to a library, borrows books, and then takes them to a bookstore to be sold. Not sure how that works thematically, but that's how it works in this game. So that is the library, and that's going to cost you 2 social battery. And then the last space on the town board is exchange, which costs you 1 social battery. Now this is where your nightstand comes into play. So you will return any number of books from your nightstand to the bag, then take that amount plus 1 of any color from the bag. Color or colors. So it's a really great way to get the colors that you want, you know, in order to take back to your apartment. So anytime you collect books while you are in town, you're going to be placing them into your backpack. So suppose I managed to get 3 books from the bookstore. I would have to decide which section of my backpack they go in. Once you place them, you cannot move them. And again, it's a maximum of 6 per square. So I can decide at the time I'm placing them how I want to place them down in my backpack. But once they're in my backpack, I cannot rearrange them. So if I had subsequently gotten more books while in town, I can't now decide, oh, actually, these books I need to rearrange and then place the new books on top of them in this way. No, once they're placed, they're placed. And that is important, and we'll talk about why in a minute. So that is the exchange action. Now, if you are in town and someone else comes to town and they want the space that you're in, they can bump you. If you get bumped, you end up going to a park bench and you will automatically gain 2 social battery because now you are resting in the park. So bumping is something that someone might want to think twice about because they are helping you to gain more social battery and to stay in town longer, because you can only stay in town for as long as you have social battery to stay in town, because as you start depleting your battery, you can't do anything, so you'll have to head home. So yeah, so if you get bumped, you're going to get 2 social battery. So that is the town board. So now you've depleted your social battery. So what are you going to do? On your next turn, you might decide to come home. So when you come home, you will place the stacks from your backpack and then take a turn at home. So you will place your meeple here, which indicates you're returning home. Now you're going to place the books you got from your backpack into your house. And when you do that, so when you place books from your backpack, it says, without changing their order or dividing the stacks, place each stack from the backpack onto a space in your apartment, following all the maximum of height of 6 books rule. So suppose you have a backpack stack that is 6 books high, obviously it's going to go into an empty space because you cannot divide them. That's why it's really important in deciding how you place books in your backpack and doing that carefully. So now you're back at home. So again, you're going to start trying to complete more little project cards. Sorry, wrong card. You're going to try to complete more of these little project cards, try to gain more social battery, get more points, and so on. So maybe that you can go back to town a second time. So like I said, in our game, one of the players went into town 3 times, and then 2 of us went into town twice, and 1 other player went into town once. I went into town twice, and I came in last place. So yeah, but interestingly enough, the player who went into town the least amount of times still had like a comparable amount of books as the rest of us, including the player who went into town 3 times. Because again, as I said, the bookstore is where you can get books, and the way that works is like one grouping might, increase really a lot in size because no one wants it. So every time someone takes another group, then one more gets added to this one when you replenish. And so one group might get larger and larger. So eventually when someone does take it, they might get a lot of books at once. And if you get anything in excess of, 12 books that you can't place in your backpack, then you're obviously going to have to discard some because you can't take all of them. So that is essentially the game. So the game is your own little puzzle in your own house where you're trying to rearrange books by sorting and gathering, and you're gaining social battery by doing that, and you're using the social battery to go into town to get more of these little project cards. But again, you can also get little project cards from resting, but the main function of going into town is to get these other neat stuff cards and books. And then once it's the end of the game, and again, the end of the game is triggered once the sun reaches the last spot, because someone went into town to trigger that, then you complete the round, and then you have 1 more turn. Then at the end of the game, you will score 1 victory point for each book tile in your apartment, including your backpack. You will gain 2 victory points for each accomplished little project card in your scoring pile. So whenever you complete one of these, you just put them into a face down scoring pile. You will gain all the victory points that are listed on your other neat stuff cards. So whatever points you got from those, you will gain those. You will gain victory points for any completed major accomplishments, which we talked about, which were the public goals. And then you will gain 1 victory point for every 4 remaining social battery you have. And then whoever has the most points will win. If there is a tie, then the player with the most books will win. And for further ties, the victory is shared. So that is a place for all my books. So a really fun, cozy, crunchy game. It's crunchy because you have a lot of stuff to figure out in your own apartment as you're rearranging books and trying to accomplish more than 1 project at a time. So, there's a picture here where I can show you how I completed 3 projects at once, which again, you definitely want to do. So that, I really enjoyed the puzzle aspect of it. And I also really enjoyed the aspect of, the interaction in the town and, seeing people maybe take stuff stuff you want. Well, I didn't enjoy that, but you know, there is interaction in the town. So people might take what you want, you know, you might worry about people running back to town before you do, you know, so you kind of have to calculate like in your head, like, okay, how many turns is it before I complete this number of little projects? And this is, you know, then I want to go back in town, but can I wait to do that because is someone else going to go into town and trigger game end? Like those were questions that I really had to consider towards the end, because I could have completed a few more things on my board before going back into town, but then I saw that another player might do that, and then I would get maybe screwed out of a couple of things because I really wanted another book of one more color. So yeah, so those are just things that you just have to think about when you are playing this game, which is a lot of fun. So yeah, so that is a place for all my books. And if you enjoy cozy and crunchy games with really cute artwork, then I would definitely check this out. So yeah, so that was a place for all my books. So let's move on. Let's talk about Grand Central Skyport. So this is a 2025 game for 2 to 4 players, designed by Dan Germain, and the art is done by Andrew Bosley, and it's published by 25th Century Games. And this is a copy that I'm borrowing from a friend to shoot this video. So this is a rondel kind of set collection kind of game. Yeah. And yeah, that's how I would describe it. And that's how BGG describes it as well. So you're going to have this one board, and on this board, you're going to be going around this board, and you're going to be collecting various cards and maybe tycoons and other things that you're going to be adding to your own station. So you are constructing a station basically. So let me just read you the little overview. So it says, as the owner of a major international skyport, you must manage the arrival of new airships, increase capacity with extra stations, and attract the support of wealthy tycoons. Direct the air traffic around your skyport into lanes with the same color of airship, and move those lanes beside a matching station to boost your score. Each station can also host a tycoon, adding abilities and scoring bonuses if your skyport has the resources they seek. Outscore your rivals to win the coveted title of Grand Central Skyport. So you are actually creating a skyport with multiple stations, which is a more correct way of explaining the game. So for setup, each person is going to start with a station, 2 stations in fact, and so let me just show you the starting stations. So depending on your location, you will get some different starting stations. So I played as Japan, so I'll show you all of them actually. So this is the New York station, and New York's starting cards. So each station starts with some cards as well. And here's another New York station. So yeah, so each person starts with 2 stations and 2 cards. Here are the Paris stations. I just absolutely love the artwork, like so freaking much. London, I did not unfortunately get to play as London because I was the last to arrive, so I was stuck with Tokyo, which isn't terrible. I mean, Tokyo seems like a really cool place as well. And here is Tokyo. So you're going to play it with this side up because these little tags here will matter when you're playing the game, and I'll explain why. So again, you start with 2 cards, and you're going to be playing your cards, and we'll talk about how you play your cards as well. Well, these ones, you're just going to start the game with. I believe you place those randomly, the starting cards, in fact. Let me just double check. And the starting cards, I think it does not matter what, yeah, so this, you're going to create your own setup like this with your 2 stations and the 1 card placed between them and 1 card on one end. And it's not going to matter where you place your cards because you're not going to be at an advantage because every player will get cards that have colors that do not match the colors on their stations, and that's important because you're going to be trying to match them, but so no one starts with an advantage where they have matching colors. So that is important to keep in mind. So again, around the board, you're going to have different areas on the main board, and you're going to be collecting these cards, and you're going to also be trying going to collect various tycoons that might be able to help you. So at the bottom of the board, there's going to be stacks of these tycoons of various types. And the various types will all be in one stack. So for example, the suppliers will be in one stack. You'll have explorers in another stack, merchants in a stack, diplomats in a stack, and so on. I believe there was one type where they were split up into 2 stacks. I can't remember which type that was now, but there is one type that was split up into 2 stacks. But when we get there, we will talk about it. And then you'll also have locations where you can collect more stations to increase your Skyport, which is something you might want to do. I don't believe, did I get a chance to do that? I can't remember now. But yeah, but that's something that you'll probably want to do. Oh yeah, let me show you these really cool components. So this is the deluxe version that my friend backed. So these are the pieces that you'll be moving around on the main board. So this is New York's piece. Very cool. This is Tokyo, Paris, and then London. And if you have the non-deluxe version, it still comes with these really nice, chunky, like plastic kind of pieces. Are they plastic? I don't know what they are, but they're really nice and chunky. There's going to be certain public goals that you can try to achieve. So you'll have these discs placed out on one of the areas of the main board. And if you happen to land there and you met the objective, the goal, then you can collect these, which will give you points. And if you're the first person to get there, then obviously you'll get the highest number of points, which would be like 7, for example. So for this one, this is kind of like a set collection. You want to have all 3 of those symbols showing in your Skyport. And the next one, you want to have all of the 6 different balloon types showing in your Skyport in order to get that one. But again, you need to land on that part of the board in order to collect that when it's your turn. And I believe that this is the first player marker, and this is so nice too. Oh, I just really love the artwork and everything. I really love the theme of this game. Okay, so on your turn, you're going to be dealt 2 cards to start the game with. I believe it's 2 or maybe it's 3 airship cards. So this is what an airship card looks like. So as you can see, there's an ability, there's like numbers, and there's like a symbol in the corner and different colors. So you're going to play a card from your hand into your Skyport. Now, when you play a card into your Skyport, remember that this is the starting setup. So you cannot place it just between like a station and another card. You can only place a card on one end or the other. You cannot place it in between anywhere or on an existing lane. So you have to place it at one end or the other, and then you follow the instruction on the card. So for this one, it says move left or right by 2 to 3 spaces. Now what you're trying to do is you're trying to get all your airships of one color in a stack, and you're trying to get them to the matching tag on the station, because that's going to score you more points at the end of the game. So you might want to place this on one end or the other in hopes that you can somehow move it to another red card, and then once a card of one color reaches a lane, and the lanes where you place your airships between stations, they're called lanes. So if it manages to reach a lane of the same color, they merge and it will join that lane. So you want your airships of a specific color to reach the other airships of that color and merge with them. Now, sometimes it might work out perfectly depending on the ability on the card. Other times it will take you a few turns to somehow manipulate your Skyport in order to get certain colors grouped together. So again, you want all airships of a color to be together, and you want them next to the station that they match. So you want the reds next to the reds, for example, because then at the end of the game, you will get more points for that. So, and again, there's going to be a way on the main board to collect more station boards, because not everyone starts with a station of every color, because again, you start with 2 stations and there are just 4 colors on those 2 stations. So everyone is missing 2 colors, and the 2 colors they're missing are the 2 cards that they are given. So you definitely want to try to acquire another station. So once you've played the card and placed it into your Skyport, now you're going to move your airship on the main board that number of spaces. So that's when you take your airship and you move it around. So now let's look at the different sections on this board. So I think that this is based on player count, maybe. I don't know which side is which, but I don't even know if it matters or if it's just double-sided. But everyone is going to start over here. So that's where you start, and that's the promenade. But let's suppose you actually landed there. You'll see that there is a plus symbol. So, and there again, there's going to be cards in each of these little areas, airship cards face up. So you can kind of see which card is where that you might want to try to get. Now, you'll see that plus symbol with an arrow pointing to the cards. So on the bottom, it says gain this airship card or choose a tycoon card from the promenade. So you will do one or the other if you land at the promenade. So if you happen to land here, you can either gain the top card or you can choose one of the tycoons who are on the bottom. And again, tycoons, you will play as a card. So you will hang on to the tycoon until it's your turn, and then you will place it below a station. And a station can only have one tycoon. If you land over here, it says you may immediately move a lane that matches this color, the color of this card by 1 to 2 spaces. So you will gain the card, but you can also immediately move a whole entire lane in your airport that matches the color of that card by 1 to 2 spaces. So 1 or 2 spaces over in either direction. Over here, it says gain this airship card or this station card. So you're going to have a stack of station cards here. Again, they're not cards, they're actually cardboard, but they count as cards. So you can either gain the airship card or the station card to place into your Skyport. Over here, you will gain a card, and it says if you complete a set of colors, so if you have all 6 airship colors, that is when you can collect the top token, which will give you points at the end of the game. If you land over here, it says gain this airship card or choose a tycoon card from the promenade. So here you can either gain the card or look down there and gain a tycoon. Over here, it says you may immediately move a lane that matches the color of this card by 1 to 2 spaces. So again, the same as the other one. And here you can either gain this airship card or this station card. And then finally down here is where you will have the other set of scoring. So if you have cards that have all the 3 different icons on it, you can get one of these scoring chips, and that will score you points at the end of the game. So those are all the different spaces on the main board, and they both look the same to me, both sides of the board. I don't really see a difference there. So basically, again, on your turn, you're going to play one of your airship cards, follow the directions on the card, and then move your ship that number of spaces. And you're trying to manipulate your Skyport so that you can get the colors together that you want. So let's talk about tycoons. So tycoons are played directly below a station, and each type of tycoon provides a game end scoring opportunity and offers a different ability to allow you to manipulate your Skyport. And you cannot have more than 1 tycoon of the same type in your Skyport. You cannot place a tycoon without an empty station to receive them. And you cannot remove a tycoon, transfer them to another station, or replace them with a different tycoon. So once they get placed, they are permanent. So let me just show you some of the abilities because they can be very beneficial. So for example, the sculptor. So this one says, when you add this tycoon to your Skyport, draw an extra card from the airship deck. And then at the game end, you will score points, 3 points for all of those different icons. So the sets you have of these for each icon in your hand. Oh, actually, sorry, you'll gain points for each icon you have in your hand. So if you have any cards left over in your hand that have those icons on them, you will get those points. So that is the sculptor. Yep, and it looks like they're all pretty much the same. The explorers are a little bit different, and they have the same kinds of abilities, but they are associated with different colors. So for example, this explorer says, after you play a ticket or orange airship, so a ticket icon or an orange airship, if your Skyport has at least one compass symbol on it, you may move any other lane by 1 to 2 spaces. If it has 2 compass symbols on it, you may swap any 2 other lanes. And then you will also get to score at game end for the compass symbols that you have. So that is how the Explorer works. And again, there are different Explorers for different colored airships. So that is nice. The Merchant says, after you play a compass card or purple airship, so a card with a compass symbol on it. So let me just find you one so you know what I'm talking about. Like this one, for example, has a compass symbol on it. So after you play a compass or a purple airship, if your Skyport has at least 1 crate, you may move any other lane by 1 to 2 spaces. If it has 2, you may move any other lane by 1 to 4 spaces. And then at game end, you will score some points. So that is how that one works. So that's a Merchant. Diplomat. So this one works with the ticket icons, and that will allow you to move your player marker an additional space based on the card you played. So for example, if you played this card, instead of moving just 3 spaces on the main board, if you have at least 1 ticket icon, you can move an additional space. If you have at least 2 ticket icons in your Skyport, then you can move an additional 2 spaces. So I found the Diplomat to be very helpful. So that was the one that I liked the most. And then finally, there is the Inventor. So this one says, you may insert airships to the left or right of the station, then follow the normal movement rules. And at the game end, you would also score some points. So those are the different kinds of tycoons you can get. And as you can see, they also have this symbol in the corner, which is a point scoring thing. So let's just talk about how scoring works a little bit, because that's important. So you will see that your stations all have this. Now, when you place airships that match the color over here, you are going to add up the number of diamonds you have. So like, let's suppose I had this over here. So now I have 2 diamonds, and you're going to, like, I believe, multiply it by the number of colored airships that you have connected to that match the color. So we can talk about that in scoring, but that's something that you want to keep in mind, and that's another reason you would want tycoons. But before we go on to scoring, let me just make sure I went over all this stuff. Yeah, so, you know, different cards have different abilities, like moving lanes, swapping lanes, and so on. So you always do that. We talked about the tycoon phase. So after you have your Skyport phase where you play your airship card, then you have the tycoon phase. So in this, you may use the abilities of each tycoon in your Skyport. So that's how that works. There's the acquisition phase. In this phase, move your player standee clockwise on the central Skyport to gain a new card and use the action on the new space. Okay, so that's the acquisition phase. So Skyport phase is when you place the card and you move things in your Skyport as necessary, as indicated on the card. You can check your tycoon and see what special abilities you have. Then you move your player marker on the actual central Skyport to gain a new card and use the action of the new space. This is where a little bit of, you know, controversy came up. Like, the question was, do you always gain a new card, or do you gain a new card or do the thing that's listed on the board? Because if you look here, some of them say gain this card or do this thing. And if you don't gain a card, eventually you're going to run out of cards in your hand, because you only start with, I believe, 2 or 3 cards in hand to start the game. So let's look at setup again, because I don't remember how many it was exactly. But that became a huge issue in our game, trying to determine whether it was both or one or the other. Yeah, so definitely something that needs to be cleared up a little bit. I can't find it now, but I think it was 3 cards. No, 2 cards, 2 airship cards. So yeah, you start with 2 airship cards in hand. And the first thing you're going to do is play one of those cards. So then you're left with 1 airship card in hand. So the question became, do you always get to take a card, or do you take a card or do the other thing? And here, even here, it says or. But at a certain point, I think we started playing where you get to take the card plus do the other thing. It was kind of confusing. Like I said, it led to a lot of arguments, and we checked Board Game Geek and we couldn't find the answers to that, but it did lead to a heated argument between some of the players, which I always find that kind of humorous when people get into arguments over a board game, but yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so that's something that I think I need to check Board Game Geek about and see if they actually completely resolve that. But I feel like if a rule book is not very clear where people are arguing about that, then it's like, how did that happen? Like, they really need to make that more explicit. Yeah, so anyway, so that is basically how you play, and then the end of the game. So you're going to continue taking turns until the station closing card is revealed in the airship deck. So at the beginning, during setup, you're going to be placing this somewhere in the bottom of the deck, right? So once that's revealed, each player takes one final turn before the game ends, and players score their Skyports. So scoring airships. Consider each lane in your Skyport one at a time. Now you're going to count the number of diamond icons in this lane. If the lane is beside a station and the lane matches the color of the station's ribbon on that side, add the diamond icon from the station. If the matching station has a tycoon, add the diamond icon from the tycoon. Then you score points equal to the number of airships in the lane multiplied by the lane's diamond total. So if you, don't have any colors that match a ribbon, then you're not really going to be scoring for that ship color, if I'm remembering this correctly. Because yeah, I can see that, people scored 0 for certain colors that maybe they couldn't get next to the matching ribbon. So that is how you score your airships. Then you will score your tycoons. So for each type of tycoon, there is a different scoring rule. So again, we kind of already went over those, so I won't go over those again. You're going to score complete sets, so score the points shown on any tokens you collected for completing a set of airship colors or icons. So if you manage to collect one of these, you will get the points for those. And then I believe that that's it. Yeah, so there's a whole example here of how you score the different lanes. And again, if you have a lane colors that are not next to the ribbon that they match, then you won't really score any points for them, unfortunately. Actually, it looks like you still do score a point for, well, here there's an example where there's a card not next to a matching ribbon, but it still scored 1 point. But I think that that's because maybe there's a diamond on that card. I think that's how that works. I can't really remember now. I played this game like 2 weeks ago, so it's a little bit hard to remember, but yeah. But yeah, you can look at the example to see how things score. Sorry, I know that this is like a terrible explanation. So my excuse is I'm still recovering from surgery and I played this 2 weeks ago. So that's my excuse for a really horrible explanation of this game. But yeah, I just recall that when we played, we were really struggling to figure out whether you can take a card each time and whether these, then the tycoons you pick up count as cards, which you then play on a subsequent turn. So there were those little things that we were nitpicky about and trying to figure out, which I think need to be made explicitly clear on Board Game Geek so people don't argue about that going forward. But yeah, otherwise a pretty cool rondel game in which it can get tricky. Like I remember when I was playing, there were times where, I didn't like any of the cards in my hand and I didn't want to play any of them because it would put me on a section of the main board that I just didn't want to go to. And it's like, oh, and then it would really mess up my lanes and mess up things that I was trying to achieve. And then I was like, oh, then I would have to try to undo things because if it moved something and got in between a matching ribbon and a matching lane, if the new airship did that, then I would just be like upset about that because now it's like, okay, great, now I have to undo this thing that, unfortunately happened, and you might not get to undo it right away. And as the game is approaching game end, you're stuck, you have limited time to try to undo these things that are happening in your station. So a pretty cool game. It's a pretty cool game. If you enjoy those kinds of games where, like those kind of tactical games where you're deciding what to play and how it's going to mess up things and stuff like that, you might enjoy it. And it's got really cool like steampunk artwork. So I really love the whole steampunk airship vibe of this game. I love the artwork. I think it's really, really cool. So yeah, so if that sounds like something you're interested in, then you should definitely check out Grand Central Skyport. And again, this was a copy that I borrowed from my friend to talk about. So let's move on. So let's talk about Big Sur. Big Sur is a 2025 game for 2 to 4 players, designed by Mondo Davis, and the art is done by Tristram Rawson, and it's published by 25th Century Games. And this is a copy that I'm borrowing from a friend to talk about. Now, I was a bit nervous when starting to play this because I played this designer's a game called Colorfield, which I absolutely did not like and could not even understand how that game was published. But obviously this looked so much better than Colorfield, and it was actually fun to play, and so that was a relief. So I actually enjoyed this game, unlike Colorfield, which yeah. So anyway, so this is a game, a pattern, kind of like a set collection kind of game in which you are constructing Highway 1. And Highway 1, from what I've seen, looks absolutely stunning, and I've always wanted to go on Highway 1. So yeah. So anyway, I really enjoyed this game. It's a really good like card set collection kind of game. Pattern building kind of game with multi-use cards. So every person is going to start with 2 cards in hand. So I'll just show you an example of some cards. So here is an example of some cards. Now you're going to see the construction cost of the cards in the bottom left corner. So that is what you need to pay in order to construct it. At the top, you will see how many miles this road is. So this particular card is 1 mile long. It shows you the different terrain types. So here we have both beach and flower fields, and then finally you will see what is over here if there is something. So this card, because it's only a 1 mile card, it provides you with a permanent resource that you can use. This card here is a 2 mile card, and this one provides you with a scoring. So it says score 1 point for each stretch in your highway. So that's just like a regular card. I want to just show you some other cards. So yeah, so there's going to just be scoring cards, and then I want to see the number 4. So the longest mile length in a card is 4, but that costs 3 resources typically, and it gives you 3 icons above here up on the top. So yeah, so 3 different types of landscapes. So again, the 1 mile cards usually give you a permanent resource once you place it into your highway. So everyone starts with 2 cards in hand, and then for setup, you're going to have 5 of these cards face up with the draw deck next to it, and you will also have 5 landmark cards face up with the draw deck next to it. So landmarks, you'll see the different kinds of terrain types, and you can place a landmark once you have a stretch that includes at least 3 of those icons. So when you're placing cards, you want to try to place different terrain types together so that you can create long stretches of that terrain type, because that's going to be beneficial for scoring as well as getting these landmarks. Now you can only have 1 landmark per stretch. So if I have a stretch of beaches that's 6 beaches long, I can only still have 1 landmark card above it. Yeah. And landmarks will give you some kind of a special ability or scoring or something like that. So on your turn, what you're going to do is you're going to take 2 cards. So you will take 2 cards either that are face up or from the draw deck, or a combination of both. Then optionally, you can build a part of your highway. So this is where you can decide to discard cards for their resources in order to build. So on the top of the card, you will see what resources on the back. So on the back of this card, you're going to see that it's a hard hat. On the back of this card, you're going to see that it's a water. So there's different types of resources that you need to spend in order to build the different stretches of highway. So you're also going to be collecting cards not for just building them, but for using them for resources to build. So you will be doing that. So suppose, for example, I wanted to build this. I need this concrete block plus stone. So if I had a concrete block and stone in hand, then great, I can discard these 2, which I collected on a previous turn, and now place this on my highway on one stretch or another. You cannot pull apart your highway to start inserting roads in between different sections, because obviously that is not something you can do in real life either. So you can only build on one side or the other. But again, you want to be mindful of your terrain types so that you can create stretches of your terrain types so that you can eventually get landmarks. So let's suppose I put down my 3rd beach. you know, optionally, I can also take a landmark card. So you can do that optionally on your turn. It doesn't cost you anything to take this and then add it above one of the cards of that stretch. And this one says, on the highway card below, you may use the persistent material twice per turn. So you would want to place this above a 1 mile card so that you can use this symbol twice per turn. So now it would be like you have 2 water droplets instead of just 1, which would be pretty freaking amazing for building. Yeah, so that's pretty awesome. So yeah, so you can build highway, so you can discard cards from your hand to build a section of a highway. And again, we already talked about persistent materials. Now, when you build, you're going to create your own discard pile, and that matters because the top material is something that you always have available to you. So if this is my discard pile of stuff that I've used to build, and it's my next turn, I also have this wood available to me as a resource. So whatever card you place on top matters. So suppose you see that, you know, in a future turn, you are going to want to build something that has wood, and you just spent these 2, you're obviously going to want to place wood on top if you don't think you can acquire a wood in another way to use to build. So that is very helpful. So again, you want to create stretches of highways of the same terrain type, and then claim a landmark optionally, which we just already talked about, if you have at least 3 of those icons in a stretch, and a stretch is 3 or more. So again, that's, you know, that's basically the game. And then turn end, once you have taken 2 new highway cards into your hand and optionally built a highway and claimed a suitable landmark, it's time to refill the depot. So you will refill the cards to 5 again, the landmarks and the highway cards, and that's it. And then it's the next player's turn. Game end. The game ends when there are no more cards in the highway deck after refilling the depot at the end of your turn. The number of highway cards is enough to give each player the same number of turns before the deck runs out. Now it's time to score your highway. So scoring, you are going to score stretches. So score 1 point per mile in each stretch of your highway. Remember that a stretch requires at least 3 icons of the same scenery. So they're called scenery, not terrain types. Scenery directly connected side by side. You can have more than 1 stretch of the same type of scenery if they are separated by a different type. Any part of your highway with fewer than 3 icons together does not count as a stretch. 2 mile bonuses. Score bonus points according to the scoring condition on each 2 mile card in your highway. The bonus applies even if the card is not part of a stretch. Landmarks, then you score points for the total number of landmarks in your highway as follows. If you have 1 to 2 landmarks, you score 3 points, 3 to 4, you score 5 points, 5 plus landmarks, you score 8 points. You also check your landmark cards for any game end scoring abilities to add to your score. Then you total your scores for stretches, 2 mile bonuses, landmarks, and the player with the most points wins. In the case of a tie, the tied player who built the fewest highway cards is the winner. So that is the game. So yes, just really fun, like little card building game with multi-purpose cards. And I just really love looking at the artwork. I specifically really like the flower scenery, and I actually don't think I ended up building any. I can't remember. Maybe I had 1 flower card or 2. I don't really remember, but those were my favorite. But I don't remember the scores. Let me see what the scores were. So I played this like 2 weeks ago as well. So let's see. The scores were, oh, I actually won. So I won with 24 points. Then the next 2 players had 23 each, and then the last person had 19. So I played a 4-player game of this. So I won by 1 point. Well, that's nice. So yeah, so that is Big Sur. So if you enjoy games like this, then I would definitely check it out. It's a pretty enjoyable game with pretty artwork to look at. And it's just, yeah, it's just a pleasing, pleasant game. So yeah, so that is Big Sur. So let's move on. I did play some other games recently. Maybe I will talk about them some other time just because of how long this video is taking me, and I feel like I'm just doing a really bad job today of explaining games. But It's a Wonderful World is a game I played recently, which I do want to talk about in depth, so maybe I'll save that for next week. And I also played a card shedding game called Ruins from All Play a couple weeks ago, which I think would be interesting to talk about. So I'll talk about that at some other point as well. But those are just a few other games I've played recently that hopefully I'll talk about someday. So anyway, so let's move on. So in terms of games I'm backing, I'm still not backing anything, which is great. I'm kind of interested in Hanami, which is the new game from Keymaster Games, which is Samurai by Rainer Knizia, rethemed and kind of like with some, you know, upgrades, I guess, and rules, maybe some rule revisions and stuff like that, and just beautiful, stunning, like cherry blossom artwork and stuff like that. But I'm not backing it because, number one, I feel like Rainer Knizia games are games that are very similar to each other, and I don't know if I need every single Rainer Knizia game there is, but my game store is backing this campaign, so if I decide later on in the future I want it and I've got enough store credit saved up to get it, I might get it that way and not have to pay for shipping. So I think I'll hold off on backing Hanami because I recently did actually get rid of Cascadero. So I guess I can talk about some games that I've culled recently. So I actually culled Cascadero Deluxe, my deluxe edition of that, which I had backed on Kickstarter. So as part of my Ko-fi membership levels, the highest paying one, which is like $15 a month, they're eligible for board game giveaways. So I gave away Cascadero Deluxe in one of the giveaways. I also gave away a copy of Mycology because one of them was actually interested in that game, which I was happy about because I did not enjoy Mycology and I was really upset about how much money I spent on backing that. And I don't know if there was like different tiers of it, like deluxe or whatever, but you know, the components and stuff were really nice. But I remember looking at how much I spent on that game and I was not happy with how much I spent on it. So I was happy that one of the Ko-fi members wanted that game. So I sent that off to him. I also culled Samuramat because I'm not a fan of cooperative games and I knew I was never going to play that game again, so one of the Ko-fi members wanted that, so I culled that as well. I got rid of Cloud Age, which is a game from Capstone Games, which I actually never played and was just sitting on my shelf, and I figured I'm just never ever going to end up playing that, so I culled that as well. And then I got rid of some pre-production copies that I had, which nowadays I'm not getting any because no one wants me to cover it in games anymore. I don't know if that's because I'm just like really outspoken about Palestine or because I shit on the people who are not outspoken about Palestine but claim to care about human rights issues. I don't know why, but the fact of the matter is I'm not really covering any Kickstarter games anymore. But I did get rid of 3 pre-production copies of games I had, Inventors of the South Tigris, Fromage, and Novoria. And I do have the production copies of 2 of those. I still need to get my production copy of Inventors, which I definitely want to do because I want to round off my collection, and that is like probably my favorite trilogy from Garfield Games. So those are some games that I culled recently, and you know, given how out of control my collection is, I definitely need to start culling more and doing some more giveaways on this channel as well. So let's move on to stuff that I have received recently. So I received my expansion that I backed of Harvest, which is Harvest Fall Festival, and I don't believe that this can fit in the main box. I like literally could not find a place to store all of this stuff in the main box of Harvest, which is a pretty big box, but everything has a very, you know, finite amount of space, specifically designed for what it's used to, you know, meant to hold. So there's really no room for all of this other stuff. So I think you have to keep this little box on hand because you don't really have room for it. But I love the fact that they came out with these like specific scoring tokens for all of the big Animeeples, because these by themselves were taking up way too much space on the scoring track. So going forward, and for all of the existing animals, they also created these scoring tokens with the animal screen printed on them, which is really awesome. This expansion comes with 3 of these little dogs, which are so cute. Just really, really love this. Yeah, this cute little mouse, which I already showed you. I actually really love mice. My cats sometimes catch mice, and if they haven't yet killed it, I'll rescue the mouse. It's like little field or house mice, they're called. They're really little, tiny little things. They're just so adorable. I just love them. So I'll hold them and then I'll release them back into my basement. So yeah. This also comes with a little board, which is really cute. So cute. Oh, I love autumn. So glad it's almost autumn. I just really, really love autumn. And then it came with these really cool Halloween cards, which I think are like some promo cards. Like, look at those. Oh, I just really, really love these Halloween cards. And then it came with this, which is like, I guess, a new character. And then, you know, it came with some new other tiles and stuff like that, like some expansion stuff, I guess. So, you know, I don't know what all of this is, but I guess it's like an expansion So a little mini expansion and then some cards. So yeah, so I think it came with like actually like a mini expansion plus the fall harvest expansion. So a few different things here, which I'm excited to play with. I actually really love harvest and I've played with my copy a number of times now. So looking forward to playing with the expansion. I think that this is one game where I actually will play with the expansion. Like typically when I get expansions, like whether or not it gets played is really, I guess it's not really a gamble. Like more often than not, it doesn't get played. So this time I think that the expansion will get played with. And then I received a review copy from Asmodee Games. So I received 2 review copies recently from Asmodee. So the first one is Ink, which is by Casper Lab. So this looked interesting to me. I will admit that it kind of gives off color field vibes, which is a little bit scary because I absolutely hated that game. And I really hope that this does not play anything like color field, because that would just be really upsetting that I, you know, spent one of my review copies on a game that I'm not gonna like then. But hopefully it's nothing like color field. But it has some pretty cool components. So it has these really cool like ink bottles of different colors. So these are all the different ink bottle colors. There's a bag, which I think you probably put some tokens in, some kind of a board. So I think the X tokens probably go in the bag. I don't know how to play this yet, by the way, so no idea. There's these, which have like different kinds of abilities on them. No idea what they are. I'm assuming that these are player tokens. I don't know. There's a bunch of these like little squares in different colors. There are some cards. Like right now, the vibe is totally color field, like just colors and stuff like that. And then there's a whole bunch of these tiles, like, and I mean like a whole bunch. So just a bunch of different tiles. So no idea how this plays yet. And there is one board. Let me see if I can get the board out. And there's this board. And that's it. So again, a whole bunch of different tiles and a couple of cards and stuff like that. But we'll see how it plays. Hopefully it is better than color field. Hopefully, hopefully. So yeah, so this arrived. And then the other game that arrived, oh, actually, sorry, let me just stick all of this back in there first, if I can. Okay, so another game that I received recently from Asmodee, which I requested, and I do already own this game, the previous edition of this game, is Quacks. Now this is the all-in deluxe edition of Quacks. I requested this because I thought it would be nice. I love the game Quacks, and I thought it would be really nice to have one box with everything in it, even though the artwork and everything is completely different. And I will say that I own everything Quacks already. I own Quacks with the 2 different expansions, but some of the stuff I think is still stored in the expansion boxes because I couldn't get it to fit into the main box. And I went ahead and ordered like these deluxe components for the ingredients from Etsy, but I ordered the kind where you actually have to push in the cardboard and glue them into the deluxe components. So I never got around to actually gluing the cardboard into the deluxe components for the expansions. I only did it for the base game. So I actually still have those from Etsy and I never got around to doing that. So I was actually happy to get this because I, you know, if I decide I do want to play the game but with the old artwork, I can just always use the ingredients from this one and still play with the old editions boards and everything, or I can just play with this. You know, it depends on your artwork style because the artwork style is completely different. So I will show you what the box looks like for me. So, and no box lift. I did purchase some of my own containers to hold various components, but even with that, there is no box lift. So here are a bunch of different tiles. And these, I believe, go with one of the expansions. I can't remember which one. It's been a long time since I've played, but now it's spooky season. Just here, I consider August to be the start of spooky season. I definitely hope to play Quacks again soon. So yeah, I know that the artwork doesn't appeal to everyone. It's a, you know, it's a kind of a specific kind of art style, and you kind of like have to really like this kind of art style, which I don't mind it. So, and here are some player boards. Are these upside down? Yes, they are upside down. Here are some player boards, and it does come with the 5th player expansion. Here are some cauldrons, and again, they come in all the different player colors. Here's the main board with the little mice, which I think are adorable. The rats on this board I think are super duper cute. And then here are the regular player boards. So again, those look like little popcorns. Super cute. And here's how I have everything stored in the box here. So I bought these little containers from Amazon, which are super handy for a whole bunch of different board games, and I absolutely love them. And it makes setup and playing and everything super easy, because then you can just keep them in their containers. So I separated out, like if there was a lot of ingredients, then I separated them out by the numbers as well, as you can see here. So yeah, so there are, you know, containers on top of containers, so 2 will fit in each little section. And then I have all of the recipe books here. So there's a whole bunch of different recipe books stored on the bottom over there. And then I have another container for all of the different player pieces, which I thought was an easier way to store all of those. And then there are all of these little potion bottles stored here. So, and then money. I don't recall, honestly, I don't recall there being money in Quacks when I played it. Like, I just do not remember money. I do remember rubies, these, but I don't remember money. So yeah. So I managed to get everything to fit by using these little containers, which I absolutely love. And so yeah, let me just show you these ingredients. So these are really nice. So they are like acrylic, I think, or plastic. I don't know, one or the other. So yeah, so really enjoy these beautiful deluxe pieces, which are really nice. So that is the other game that arrived from Asmodee, which I hope to play soon. So yeah, so those are the 2 review copies I've received recently. So let's move on. So for this week's fiction book club of the Free People's Village, we were supposed to read chapters, gosh, what chapters were we supposed to read? 25 through 28. So as we know, like the revolution, or whatever you want to call it, the revolt, I guess, has started against the highway being built, and the house has been turned into, like, you know, ground zero for this, like, kind of what is it, a revolution, revolt? I don't know what the correct word is, honestly. I'm sure that there is a word, and the author probably used it, and I just cannot remember it now. So yeah, so anyway, so you know, we see that Red and Maddie finally get together, so that was nice. Occupation, yeah, so they're calling it the occupation of the house. So yeah, so then we see that Maddie calls in sick to work because, you know, she's suffering from the tear gas that was used, but also she just kind of wants an excuse to be at the house while things are really, like, you know, in the beginning stages of this occupation, and they're making history and all of that, and they're documenting the history that they're making, which is pretty cool. I really enjoyed seeing what happened once Maddie went to school, and she's back at school teaching her students. You know, she has these African-American students, and, you know, the way she describes her students about, like, what they're doing when she comes into the class and this and that. I just found that all really interesting. And then I found it interesting that, you know, she is being observed by this assistant principal. I think it's an assistant principal who comes in to observe Maddie teaching and gives her such a hard time because Maddie is, you know, she strayed from her agenda, or, you know, the fake agenda she had, the student plan, or whatever you call it. God, what's wrong with me today? I cannot talk. So she strayed from her weekly plan and instead decided to talk about an article discussing the highway. And the students were really engaged with that, but despite the students being really engaged and, you know, engaging debate and, you know, all this kind of, like, advanced thinking and critical analysis of the article and all of that for their age, like, Maddie was really impressed, but I guess the assistant principal was not. So Maddie got a bad review for that, you know? So I think it's really interesting because it really makes you realize that when things are happening, like injustices around the world, and people are trying to do everything that they can to fight against the injustice, even in their own personal lives and in their own jobs, like, they're sacrificing a lot. Like, you can end up sacrificing your job, which is what we've seen with the genocide in Palestine today. So it really made me think of the genocide of the Palestinians and how so many people have lost their jobs because of being outspoken against the genocide, because of refusing to do things that their employers want them to do, which go against their, ideals and all of that. So very true to life. So I found that chapter really interesting when she's at school and being critiqued by this other person, and this other person still thinks that they're super liberal and progressive and this and that, but just very true to life. Like, so many people who think that they are very progressive and liberal actually are not. And, there's a term right now, progressive accept Palestine, PEP. So that means that these are people who think that they're super progressive, like so many people in the board game industry, but for Palestine, like except for Palestine. So here we see people who are progressive except for the highway. Like, they're progressive except when it comes to allowing the government to demolish people's homes so that this mega highway or whatever it's called can be built. So very interesting. I think that this, book is just so relevant to the time right now. And it's just a very good time to be reading this book. And it just it's a fiction account of something, but it can be related to so much that is going on in the world today. And then I really liked how the author mentioned that, there were all these other organizations that are joining their cause. So at the very end of chapter 28, which is super short, by the way, the author mentions that the Coalition of Young Palestinians and Jews Against Apartheid has shown up in solidarity. Which I thought was super cool. So again, you can see that, all these different movements really need to support each other's causes, because again, no one's free until we are all free. But unfortunately, in today's world, we have a lot of people who are progressive except Palestine. So but really timely read. I'm really glad we're reading this because it really ties in to so much of what's going on right now. So interested to see what's going to happen. I'm glad that we finally got to the part where Red and Maddie are together, so we don't have to listen to her pining over him anymore. So that's good. And we'll see what happens. So for next time, read chapters 29, 30, 31, and 32. And let me know what you think in the comments below. So let me know what you thought of this week's reading. So that was Fiction Book Club. So let's move on. So for this week, we were supposed to read chapter 6 of Iran, A Modern History for our nonfiction book club, which we are literally just starting, but we're starting on chapter 6. Now, I know I said I would have this read by today, but I have a number of excuses. I know I'm really terrible. So my number one excuse is, of course, my health. So in the last week, I was still suffering from vomiting and just a lot of pain, and I would wake up every morning in severe pain, and I would not be able to function during the day without lots of painkillers. And then because of the amount of pain I was having, my mother decided to come and stay with me again. And then also my little sister decided, she's on vacation, so she decided she would come and stay here as well. And they arrived on the days that I was planning on doing my readings, which of course made it very difficult to read with them here. So those are my excuses. So also, I know that Sandra, who really, who has participated in every book club that we've had so far for fiction and nonfiction, and I think she's the only person who's done that. So kudos to Sandra, and thank you for keeping me company in these book clubs where I ramble on about what I'm reading. But Sandra was finally able to get a copy of this book, which she wasn't able to do before. So this will also give her time to read. And I know I'm terrible by using her as an excuse as well, but yay, at least this will give her a chance to read before it's discussed in a video. So I know I'm terrible, but even though I didn't read chapter 6, I did start reading a little bit of it, and I actually started reading a little bit of the intro, and I just want to read, I actually didn't read too much of the intro, but just a tiny bit so far, but I just want to mention how I thought it was really interesting that the Greeks were intimidated by the Persians because the Persian Empire was this empire with a centralized state and was ruled by the King of Kings, the Shahanshah, and the Persian Empire, had legendary wealth and economic power, a universal currency, and an efficient administration, army, and communication. So the Greeks were actually intimidated by the Persians, and I did not know that the Parthenon in Athens was to actually celebrate the Greek victory in the Persian Wars. Does anyone else know that? I didn't know that, so I thought that that was really interesting. So yeah, I didn't get very far in the introduction either, but I had started reading the introduction when I started reading chapter 6 because we skipped over chapters 1 through 5, and I was starting with chapter 6 and I couldn't remember who certain people were, so I was like, oh, maybe I should just go back and read the introduction. Maybe that'll give a broad overview, but I didn't get very far in the introduction either. But I don't have time to read chapters 1 through 5, and we decided we would start with chapter 6, so that's what we're gonna do, and that's what we're gonna stick with. But I might start just Googling some names to remind myself of who certain people are that I can't remember right now, because most of my memory is dedicated to Mossadegh and what happened after Mossadegh, after the British and the US overthrew the democratically elected leader. And I have more knowledge about the Islamic Revolution and all of that, and the basis of Iran's government. So don't remember much from before then. So I know I'm terrible, and I know I said I would be prepared today, but I really truly apologize. And I know I have absolutely no credibility, none whatsoever, but I will, I don't want to make another promise that I can't keep, because I keep on doing that and I just lose all credibility every time I do that. But I'm going to endeavor to the greatest extent possible to finish my reading and discuss it next week. So again, if you want to join and learn about Iran, please do, and get this book and read chapter 6 for next week. And hopefully it will be next week. But if you have read it, just, maybe it would be interesting for me to hear from you before I read it. So if you've already read chapter 6, drop some interesting facts in the comments below, or tell me what you found interesting about the chapter, or not interesting, or whether you even liked the chapter. Do you like the writing style of this author? Just leave your comments in the comments below, because that would actually be interesting to see what you guys think before I actually really get into it. So why don't you drop your comments in the comments below. And again, I don't want to make promises that I can't keep, because I do that all the freaking time, but I swear I will. I guess that's basically a promise too. I promise I will endeavor strongly to finish my reading for next week. Okay, so let's move on. So in this week's Rant of the Week, I actually want to talk about a post that Rodney Smith made. I believe it was last week, and I found it on the day I was editing my video, so I just kind of threw it up without actually talking about it. But today I want to talk about it because I feel like that this post shows either how incredibly stupid Rodney Smith is, or he knows exactly what he's doing and he just doesn't fucking give a shit about the genocide. It's one or the other. Could it be both? I don't know, but let's just talk about his really stupid posts. So Rodney Smith on Blue Sky, he retweeted a tweet that was part of a thread. So let me just bring it up. So the retweet that he made was this. So he retweeted this person called Greg Pak, who posted a quote from a book. And the quote said, to be accused of speaking too loudly about one injustice but not others by someone who doesn't care about any of them is to be told simply to keep quiet. And this is from Omar Al-Akkad. And then he also wrote, one day everyone will always have been against this. Now, Rodney Smith retweeted just this tweet from a thread. And so what was the rest of the thread? And I think it's really important to start at the beginning. So at the beginning, Greg wrote, please read this book. One day everyone will have always been against this, by Omar Al-Akkad. And that's what us pro-Palestinians, anti-genocide people have been saying, that one day everyone will always have been against this and have claimed that they were anti-genocide and pro-Palestinian when it's safe to be that. And we all know that that's not true, that they were not always against this. His next post says, yes, the killing happens now, but there'll be plenty of time later to write very moving stories about the shape and shade of the bones. And the person writing this quote wrote, the precision of this, my God. Then Greg wrote, there's still time to get right with God. Then Greg wrote, another quote from the book, some of the least established writers I know, the ones who have to work all manner of side jobs just to make ends meet, are actively putting their literary careers at risk by calling for an end to the wholesale murder of a people. And then we get to the quote that Rodney Smith quote tweeted on Blue Sky. And then Greg wrote, also too, if you have been silent about this or anything else that you wish you'd spoken up about, please do not feel like it's too late to do something. It's not too late. You can use your voice, you can act, you can help. And if you look at this person, Greg's profile, and all of these tweets together, you can see that he's talking about the genocide, and he's talking about the people who chastise those who are outspoken about the genocide, and like the Zionists who always come at those who are outspoken against the genocide and say, oh, well, do you care about this? Do you care about that? Blah, blah, blah. What about this? What about that? And so that's what Greg is talking about. He's not talking about people like Rodney Smith, who are only outspoken about issues it's completely safe to speak about, like Black Lives Matter, or in the board games community, Trans Lives Matter. So Rodney Smith only speaks up about issues that he knows it's safe to speak about, where he's going to get like patted on the back and be told he's the best. Oh, thank you, Rodney, for speaking up. Thank you. We love you, Rodney, blah, blah, blah. Has not once been outspoken about the genocide. Yet he had the nerve to quote tweet this when it's referring to people who are criticizing those who are outspoken about the genocide. It's not referring to people like Rodney who are outspoken about issues that are safe to be outspoken about. Like, how fucking stupid do you have to be? Like, I just don't understand how people worship someone who is this fucking dumb. Like, Rodney Smith has just shown how incredibly stupid he is that he could not get that from this thread, or he's showing you his true face, which is he actually doesn't give a shit about the genocide. And he's just telling you that by quoting this, by retweeting this and showing you that, yeah, like, oh, I'm just going to be one of those assholes that, you know, is outspoken about issues that it's safe to be outspoken about, but don't come at me being like, oh, why aren't you outspoken about the genocide, blah, blah, blah. Like, unreal. Like, how people still worship this really smug bastard, I do not understand. Like, him and Eric Lang and Suzanne, like the trio of, you know, this trio I consider to be the most smug, like arrogant people who, you know, are very selective in what they're outspoken about, but still think that they are making huge change in this industry when they've been dead silent about one of the biggest atrocities of today, which is the genocide of Palestinians. And how do you expect people who are Arab or Muslim to feel accepted in this community when you are dead silent about the killing of their people, when you're dead silent about how your tax dollars are being used to kill their families in Palestine, their friends, people who look like them, you know, brown-skinned people, people who are Muslim, people who are Arab, and you are dead fucking silent about it. Like, unreal. Like, Rodney Smith, and I know you shouldn't ever, you know, criticize someone's looks or talk about someone's looks, because that's just like super low-hanging fruit, and it's not actually criticizing the person's thoughts or anything like that. But like, this smug face, I cannot stand to look at this smug face. Like, unbelievable. Like, how fucking stupid he is with his dumb tweets, thinking that he's on the right side of history with his silence. Like, no, Rodney, you're not on the right fucking side of history. And these tweets, this whole book is about people like you. One day everyone will always have been against this. One day you're going to claim to have been against the genocide when you absolutely fucking were not. And I will not let the world forget your absolutely shitty statement back in November of 2023, where you went on and on about how complicated of an issue it is, and you're sorry that this one Arab content creator lost followers, but it's too complicated and blah, 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 blah. Like, such a bullshit statement that you got praised for. Like, I just don't understand how this industry is filled with so many stupid people. Quite frankly, I should not even give a shit about these stupid people. But the fact of the matter is, and we've seen this from what happened with CGE and DeVere Games, that this small group of outspoken hypocrites, and they're all a bunch of fucking hypocrites because they do not give a shit about the genocide, they wield power still in this industry. And it's like, why the fuck do they wield power when they are nothing but a bunch of fucking hypocrites? But they do wield power. Like, they were able to get CGE to issue a statement. They were able to, you know, rightfully get DeVere to issue an apology and take some action. So the small group of people does wield power. And unfortunately, until this really annoying, hypocritical, stupid group of people starts caring about the genocide, the industry as a whole is not going to fucking care. But these this group of people in specific is very, very hypocritical and just does not give a shit about all human rights and about the genocide. And that much is abundantly clear. And so I will continue to call out this small group of people because they fucking infuriate me and I fucking hate them all. So fuck Rodney Smith, fuck Eric Lang, fuck Suzanne Sheldon, fuck Our Family Plays Games, fuck all of these people who claim to care about human rights, but so clearly do not give a shit about the genocide. So to this day, Our Family Plays Games still has not addressed the elephant in the room, which is their sponsor, Kids Table Board Gaming. And I will just say that Kids Table is coming out with a new game soon on Kickstarter. So I think that I would prefer that everyone, I think it would be nice if everyone, when this game comes out on Kickstarter and they see their favorite content creators promoting this game by a Zionist publisher, that they speak up and say something. Like, I cannot be the only one. If I'm the only one who's calling out Zionist publishers and designers and content creators who promote Zionist games, then there's never going to be any change. They're not, because I'm just the crazy person in this industry who just, screams all the time about Zionism and how terrible Zionism is. Zionism is fucking terrible. And if you educate yourselves, you would know that. Like, start with a fucking simple book. Like, you don't even need to start with the most academic book out there. But this book here, which I always keep next to me, Genocide Bad by Sim Kern, super easy reading. It's not like heavy academic reading like the 100 Years War on Palestine or Palestine a 4,000 year history. It's like easy reading with all of the resources in it still cited. So all of the sources are still cited. It's still a very factual book, but very easy to read. And from reading this book, you will see what fucking Zionism is and how it is the evil of today, how it is no different than the Nazis of World War II. Like, if you support Zionists today, you fucking support Nazis. If you support Zionists today, you would have been quiet during World War II and would have quietly supported or loudly supported the Nazis back then. If you support Zionism and Zionists while claiming to support Palestinians, that is no different than supporting the KKK while claiming to care about Black Lives Matter. It's no different than, supporting someone like J.K. Rowling, who gives all of her money to, not all of her money, but, donates a certain amount of her money to anti-trans legislation while claiming to be about trans lives. So if you claim to care about trans lives, but you're supporting, J.K. Rowling by giving her money, then you're no fucking different. Like, that is the same fucking thing. It's the same fucking thing when you support Zionists, when you claim to care about Palestinians and claim to be anti-genocide. No fucking different. So, so they are going to be launching a new game on Kickstarter sometime soon. And I would love to see who actually stands up to this publisher and does not cover this game. But you're going to see all of these fucking hypocrites run to cover it and support their dear Zionist friend, as Eric Lang called her, my dear friend. So yes, they are friends with fucking Zionists and they will continue to support fucking Zionists in the industry. So so I really don't even know what to do, how to get people to care. It's like, you can use whatever method you want and people might disagree with my methods, but like, the other ways don't work either. Like, just trying to be nice and talk to people, like, well, for me, it doesn't work because everyone already comes with the perception that I'm dangerous and whatever, or I'm crazy since 2021 when I called out Helena Kappel for being a fucking Zionist. So no one would even bother listening to me anyway because they already think I'm crazy and I'm dangerous and all of these other things. So, I resort to shitting on people and shaming people because I'm angry and I think I'm rightfully angry. And I think if you were in my position, you would be fucking angry too. If you were in my position where a few years ago, you were calling out Israel and Zionists for what they were, and you were labeled by the so-called DEI, leaders of this community, this board game community, and you were labeled as dangerous by them and as crazy by them for speaking up for Palestinians, I think you would be fucking angry too. But unfortunately, because Arabs and Muslims are so fucking dehumanized and it's okay to be bigoted against them, it's okay to be racist against them, no one fucking cares. And, you know, I'm just shouting out into a void. And until more voices join, unfortunately, there is going to be no change in this industry. So once this campaign launches from Kids Table Board Gaming, other people really will need to speak up and be like, to their favorite content creators, like, why are you supporting a Zionist? Why are you supporting games by a Zionist publisher when you claim to be anti-genocide, when you claim to care about Palestinians? People need to speak up and, you know, and just ask them and see if they respond. I tend to shame people, and shaming obviously does nothing. Like, I've posted so many times in my Instagram stories, like, I see people all the time, the same people all the time in my Instagram stories, viewing them, big, you know, these content creators with bigger platforms than I have, who have never once used their platform to condemn the genocide or say anything, yet they check my stories all the fucking time. And I'm like, what the fuck are you checking my stories for? Like, why? What are they even doing checking my stories? Like, you don't care about me. You don't interact with me in any other fashion in Instagram. Like, you don't comment on my posts. You don't like on my posts. You only check my stories for what? To see me ranting about Israel and Palestine, to see me, you know, showing you how Zionism is the evil of today. Like, I would love to just understand the psychology of these people and just understand why they check my stories all the time when they don't even fucking care about Palestine. And almost all of my stories are about Palestine, and they won't make a single fucking post about it. Like, I just don't understand. I really truly do not understand. Like, are they actually educating themselves? Like, because I, you know, try to share stuff that's educational about Palestine as well. So are they actually taking it in? Are they actually understanding that there's a genocide going on, that the Palestinians are the victims, that Israel is an occupying illegal state, that, you know, Israel is a terrorist state? Like, are these things that they actually believe now? Like, I don't know, because they never respond to me. They never talk to me. They just simply view my stories. And occasionally I'll make a post trying to shame them, saying like, I see you viewing my stories and yet you haven't made one single post about Palestine. And do they share a story about Palestine? No. Like, I just don't understand people. I really don't fucking understand people. Like, again, as I mentioned in last week's video, if someone shamed me, I would actually feel shame. So I don't know, maybe I'm different than people. Like, maybe other people are normal and I'm abnormal. Like, if someone shamed me, I would actually feel shame if I was guilty of the thing that they were shaming me for. Do these people not feel guilty? Like, do they not feel shame when they're being shamed for being utterly silent about a genocide that is happening right now? Like, it's a fucking genocide. Like, I don't understand. I truly do not understand. I just want to read a post that this one content creator, this one activist I follow made, because I think it's really important. And I 100% agree with it. So he made a post that says, so if anyone ever says to you, Zionism is a spectrum, not all Zionists agree with every Israeli policy or how they treat Palestinians. They just believe that Israel should exist. So Tiberius wrote, okay, let's play. Nazism is a spectrum. Not all Nazis agree with every Nazi policy or how they treat Jews. They just believe that Nazi Germany should exist. Now do you see how ludicrous the conversation has become? Yes, it's all Zionists, every single one. And every single one includes fucking Helena Kappel. It includes Quackalope. It includes Board Game Co. Alex. It includes all the fucking Zionists in this industry who are just utterly silent about the genocide, who rushed to condemn Hamas on October 7th, and that includes fucking Eric Lang, but have since then been extremely silent about the genocide. Zionism is the Nazism of today. It equates to apartheid. It equates to genocide. It equates to torture. It equates to all the terrible things that you can think of. So I don't even know how people justify supporting anyone who is a Zionist today. There is no justification. You have no justification for supporting Zionists today. Like, it's been made abundantly clear to you what Zionists fucking are. Pick up a book and read it. Like, seriously, just educate yourselves. Like, why is it so fucking hard for people to educate themselves? I just don't understand. I truly just do not understand. There is a fucking Zionist in this industry. He's a content creator, but just a small-time content creator, so not like a huge content creator. And his name is Shy Filet on Instagram, and he's been posting a lot of anti-Muslim, anti-Arab shit on his Instagram stories. And so I took screenshots of his really shitty posts, a couple of them, and I shared them in my Instagram stories. And I was like, why are people following this guy who since day one has been spewing anti-Muslim, anti-Arab rhetoric and just posting the most ludicrous, like insane Israeli propaganda on his profile? And there's so many people, mutuals, who follow him. So I took screenshots of some of the things he posted, which I'm going to show you here. Yeah, so let me just bring up some of the tweets so I can talk about, not tweets, stories, so I can talk about them. Let me find my photos here. Okay, here we go. Where are they? Oh yeah, so here's one he wrote. So he shared, rather. He shared a post that said, "It's already too late, Europe," and it shows the percentage of Muslim school-age children in European capitals from 2000 to 2025. And it shows the percentage gradually increasing. So this is a post that this guy in Israel shared. By the way, this is a guy who is occupying someone's home in modern day Israel, in Palestine. And what is Palestine? So, you know, someone had to be kicked out of their home for him to have room made for him, apparently, I think, depending on where he lives. But yeah, so here is someone who is a Zionist living in Israel, just spewing propaganda in his Instagram stories about how, you know, Muslims are backwards, Muslims are this, you know, Europe, wake up, like, don't allow Muslims into your countries, blah, blah, blah. So that was one post he made. And then another one was this one where he took a picture of I don't even know if this is an actual cover of the National Geographic magazine or if it's something that someone just made, but it says National Geographic magazine, and then it shows some Muslims on the cover, and it says the New Europeans, how waves of immigrants are reshaping a continent. So a lot of this person's posts that he shares in his stories are about how Muslims and Arabs are evil and how you should prevent them from coming to your countries and blah, 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 blah. Okay, if you don't want Muslims coming to your Western white Christian country, whatever, then stop bombing Muslim countries. Like, stop bombing Muslim countries. You've bombed Iraq, you've bombed Afghanistan, you're bombing Yemen, you've bombed Syria, you've bombed multiple Muslim countries, Iran, like, you know, just stop fucking bombing them. Stop bombing Muslim countries, and then you won't have refugees from those Muslim countries trying to escape and make a better life for themselves. Stop colonizing Muslim countries. If you didn't fucking colonize North Africa where Muslims are, you know, then maybe they would have wanted to stay where they are instead of leaving and trying to make a better life for themselves somewhere else. Because we know what fucking colonization does. Colonization benefits the colonizers. It doesn't benefit the native population. It benefits the fucking colonizers. Like, if you don't want Muslims in your countries, in your Western white countries, then stop bombing and stop colonizing Muslim countries. And that goes for Palestine. You don't want Palestinians in Europe? You don't want Palestinians in America? Then stop fucking occupying Palestine. The best way to prevent Palestinians from coming into your country is to fucking get out of Palestine and stop occupying Palestine. Like, here you have all these people of European descent who have no connection to Palestine claiming it as their own, and then trying to get other people in the world, other white people in the world, upset about the fact that Palestinians want to leave and try to make a better life for themselves. And not all of them even want to leave. Like, they would prefer to stay in Palestine if they could, but they don't have equal rights in the territories. They don't have equal rights even when they're in Israel proper. Like, they just do not have equal rights. Like, you're talking about, you know, not having electricity, not having water, not having access to hospitals or medical care, you know, and especially right now in where the genocide is happening, where you see what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank, like, how can these people live there? And now they're being forced out anyway. Like, it's essentially, if you look at the news right now on Instagram or TikTok, wherever you get your unbiased, unedited news about the genocide, you will see what's going on and how all the Al Jazeera journalists were killed so that Israel could finish its final solution of the Palestinians. But if you don't fucking want Palestinians to come into your countries, then let them be. Like, let them live in their own homes. But no, that's not something that you want either. Like, you just don't want them to live. You just don't want Muslims to live. You don't want them to live in their own countries, and you don't want them to live in your country. You just want them dead. Like, that's what the world wants. The world just wants Muslims to be dead. Muslims and Arabs to be dead. Like, apparently that's what the world wants. And people like Shai Faleh are propagating that, and so many people are following him. So I shared his stories in my stories, like screenshots, and I was like, if you're following this person, you might want to reconsider. And I shared multiple posts of his, and I looked at who saw those posts, and then I looked, a day or two later, and they're still following this bigot. They're still following this person who basically just wants all Muslims dead. Like, okay, great. Like, Muslim lives and Arab lives just truly, truly do not matter to people in this industry. And I'm like, why the fuck would you want to follow someone like that? Number one, he doesn't even post much board game content. The last board game thing he posted was like months and months ago. So what the fuck are you following him for then? Like, why? Like, why are you following someone who does nothing but spew Israeli propaganda and post shitty stories about how Arabs and Muslims need to be exterminated? Like, what the fuck? Like, why are you following this person? So yeah, so that's another fucking Zionist, an Israeli Zionist, someone who's living in Israel today, who people should not be supporting. Yeah, just unfucking believable. So yeah, so that's essentially my rant of the week. I know I say it every week, but like, when I say I'm over it, I mean, I'm just like, they're just so fucking stupid. Like, the people in this industry are just so fucking stupid. And I'm just like, yeah, I really don't understand. I just don't understand. But I have to keep on speaking up, because if I stop speaking up, then who's going to be left? Like, there's really not many people in this industry who are speaking up. So I have to continue, and I will. So yeah, but anyway, that's the rant of the week. So let's move on. This week's question of the week is inspired by a place for all my books. I want to know, what is the coziest and crunchiest board game that you love? So it has to be cozy and crunchy. It has to be a combination of both. Which is your favorite cozy and crunchy game? Drop the name in the comments below, and until next week, bye.